If you take a look at the UK from space, or more particularly England, there's something that really stands out once you look closely. There's a weird, long, unusually straight line cutting right across the landscape. It doesn't seem to follow a road, it doesn't even seem to follow a river, and at first glance, it doesn't really make much sense at all. I've flown over this countless times in a light aircraft, and every time I did, it caught my eye. From the air, it looks deliberate and almost too straight to be accidental, and for years I had absolutely no idea what it was. I thought it was some kind of wartime relic, or was it some form of mega project, or just something hiding in plain sight that you'd never even notice from the ground. So, what is it? Well, today we're going to find out. When you spend enough time flying light aircraft around the UK, especially here in the south and east of England, you start to see the country very differently. From the air, the landscape tells stories you'd never even notice on the ground. There's old discarded RAF wartime airfields slowly fading back into the fields. There's stately homes tucked away behind trees, and every now and then you see something that really makes you stop and think. This line is one of those things. It stretches for miles, you can see it easily from altitude, you can even see it on satellite imagery from space, and yet when you're down at ground level, it barely looks like anything at all. That's the bit I find so interesting. From the cockpit it's obvious, but from the ground, well, it's almost invisible. You're basically standing next to a small earth embankment. From ground level, looks like nothing. And it's only now in the wintertime that you can really see it working. So when I say it's working, what do I mean? To understand this, you first need to understand the Fens, or sometimes referred to as the Great Level. The Fens are a vast area of eastern England located around the Wash, which is that big bay area that's so distinctive on any UK map. It covers parts of Cambridgeshire, Norfolk and Lincolnshire. The word fen comes from the Old English word for swamp or marsh, and it's called this because historically this land was flat, marshy ground, regularly waterlogged and prone to flooding. Much of the land here sits at or even below sea level, and because it's so incredibly flat, when flooding happens, the water doesn't just pool, it spreads, and for miles. Before drainage, large parts of the Fens were underwater for long periods. The soil was rich but often unusable, and winter floods could turn the landscape into shallow inland seas. Which brings us neatly back to that straight line. This feature is called the ooze washes, and it's not natural at all. It's one of the oldest flood defence systems in the country, built back in the 1600s as part of a huge effort to drain and control the Fens. The washes run between two long embankments for roughly 20 miles and act as a deliberately engineered floodplain. When the Great Ouse River floods, or during prolonged heavy rainfall, instead of water spreading uncontrollably across villages and farmland, it's allowed to spill into the washes. Because the land here sits a couple of feet lower than even the flat surrounding Fens, that water can spread out safely across this huge drain rather than rising quickly and causing damage. When water levels drop, it just all drains away again. It's a really simple idea, but on a truly enormous scale. What really gets me is when this was built. There were no diggers, no pumps, no modern surveying equipment. This was planned, measured and built largely by hand, using horses and basic tools. And yet nearly 400 years later, it still does exactly what it was designed to do. From the air you can see the whole system laid out beneath you. Embankments, drainage channels and villages sitting just above the floodline. It's a brilliant reminder that much of this landscape isn't natural at all. It's engineered. And behind all this was one man, Cornelius Vermuyden. In the early 17th century, England had a serious problem. Huge areas of low-lying land, not just the Fens, were regularly flooded, and a growing country needed reliable agricultural land. England didn't really know how to fix it, but the Dutch did. They'd spent centuries reclaiming land from the sea and were world leaders in water management and hydraulic engineering. King Charles I invited Vermuyden to see what he could do with the flooded areas of England, with the king seeing an opportunity to gain tax revenue from reclaiming land. Vermuyden first proved what was possible by working on land reclamation projects along the River Thames to the east of London, one of those projects being Canvey Island. In the early 1600s, Canvey was tidal marshland, regularly flooded by the Thames. Dutch engineers built sea walls, embankments and drainage systems to reclaim it and make it habitable. Having shown just how effective these techniques were, Vermeulen and his team were then commissioned for the really big job, draining the Great Level, or the Fens, including the construction of the ooze washes in the 1630s. He was later knighted by Charles I, and his work permanently reshaped eastern England. The legacy of the Dutch still shows up today, especially on Canvey Island, where many of those Dutch workers and their families settled and farmed.
Those sticks of wood there sticking up behind me are actually part of the original sea wall here at Canvey Island. The wall that the Dutch built back in the 1600s, and it's still here today. How many tides has that gone through? That's mad.
As well as those 400 plus year old wooden retaining stakes, that Dutch connection continues, with road names, traditional Dutch cottages, and even a school named after Vermeulen. Today the ooze washes serve another purpose as well. They're one of the most important wetland habitats in the UK. Each winter the washes flood and turn into an inland sea, attracting thousands of migratory birds, including lots of swans, geese, ducks and species you won't find in many other parts of the country. A 400-year-old flood defence system that still works perfectly and has accidentally become a unique and bountiful wildlife reserve. So if you're ever flying across this part of the country, whether you're in a PA-28 or returning from holiday in an airliner, keep an eye out for that long straight line cutting through the countryside. Because it's more than just a mark on the landscape, it's a remarkable piece of engineering, quietly protecting the countryside and people's homes today, just as it has always done for the last 4 centuries. Thanks for sticking with this one. It's been a little bit different. Fly safe and short field out.